When it comes to Father's Day, some things never change. Dads want steak. In fact, 75% of Americans say there's no better way to celebrate than grilling with the family. That's why I'm giving my dad Omaha Steaks, the original butcher, trusted since 1917. Their steaks are aged for tenderness, hand-cut by master butchers, and full of rich, beefy flavor. I recently tried their filet mignon and all-new smash burgers. Incredible quality and so easy to prepare. Whether it's beef, burgers, chicken, or seafood, every bite is backed by their 100% money-back guarantee. This Father's Day, give Dad the world's best steak experience with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for guaranteed perfect gifts that deliver legendary quality. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code FLAVOR at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code FLAVOR at checkout. See site for details.
Offer valid on standard browsers, U.S. only.
When I heard about Date My Age, I thought, really? But there I was in my empty, quiet house, my laptop on the kitchen counter, and I typed in my name. Looking for a man between the ages of 40 to 60? Sure, why not?
Date My Age is different. With verified profiles, you can feel safe and secure to explore meaningful connections with interesting and mature singles.
Date My Age made it really easy. I could join and view online profiles for free. All of a sudden, my empty house wasn't so quiet anymore. I got so much attention, it just made me feel seen and alive. Date My Age helped me start a totally new chapter in my life.
Find a friend, a lover, a partner at Date My Age. Get 60% off when you join at datemyage.com today. That's datemyage.com to connect with thousands of singles worldwide. datemyage.com.
Just a note at the top. This episode is best suited to our older listeners. Enjoy. I'm Laura Norton, and this is One Strange Thing, the show where we search the nation's news archives for stories that can't quite be explained. Strangers, we've covered a few urban legends on the podcast before. They're a slippery topic by nature, part folklore, part rumor, and when there is no digital trail, often hard to pin down to a particular place or inciting event. The story that we've likely mentioned most, without ever actually discussing it, is Bloody Mary. Well, today, that changes. And we'll tell you from the start that this is a subject that can't be thoroughly explored on our bite-sized show. But we think we can give you an enticing introduction. With that said, let's take a long look in the mirror and get started. Now, we have delved pretty deeply into the world of folklore before, but it's worth noting that while the study of such is serious, it's not old, at least in an academic sense. Per the Journal of Cultural Analysis, quote, the first American PhD in folklore was only granted in 1953. And the author points out that when it comes to urban legends, journalists are as apt to consult a paranormal television host, or, we apologize, a podcaster, as a serious scholar for their opinion. In fact, when he wrote to a popular news site about that very topic, the reporter told him that she didn't know that there was such a thing as a folklorist. And yet, we, as in humans, have always taken our stories very seriously. They've shaped our rules and our fears and our beliefs. They are our mirrors, culturally speaking. And that is what's so interesting about trying to figure out when a legend began. If you can pin down an inciting event that leads to, say, a national fear of strangers poisoning candy and hiding razor blades in apples on Halloween, you can begin to understand how it reflects a cultural anxiety. But what about children, mostly girls, who gather around a bathroom mirror at a slumber party or in a stolen moment at school to whisper a name 3 times? Where did that come from exactly? Strangers we wanted to find out, if we could. As you've no doubt figured out by now, we cast a wide net in the strange and unusual. A little of this and a little of that, jack of all trades, expert in none, you get the idea. But like many kids, we took a spin or two around the old Bloody Mary block and are familiar with the most common version. You turn off the lights and you look in the mirror and you whisper, "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." And then, well, she comes through the mirror, of course, and then she gets you. And what does get mean? The details were never super specific on that. Laura is pretty sure that she had a knife. Maura is unclear on how one gets got, but knows that there is getting going on. That was hard to say. When we spoke to some of our other friends, they mentioned a few variations, that you also had to spin 3 times. And instead of just saying, "Bloody Mary," you also had to chant, "Where's your baby? Where's your baby?" One friend said that when Mary appears, she drags you back through the mirror. Another said that she wouldn't kill you, she'd just appear behind you in the mirror, which seems like a much nicer version, all things considered. What's interesting, though, is that no one we spoke to knew why they were doing it. Why the name Mary? Why the addition of bloody? Now, we had the vague notion that the whole thing might have been kind of maybe linked to the nickname of Queen Mary I, as in the royal who was really into persecuting Protestants and fond of execution. To be clear, we had no basis for this, just a vague impression, and one that turned out to have no connection to anything. But it was not a bad guess. After all, kids' games are often pretty morbid when you get down to their roots. As for the other stuff, well, we've mentioned the power of 3 on the show before. It is a powerful number in fairy tales and other stories and legends and even religion. A lot of things come in 3s after all, and plenty of incantations are chanted 3 times. In fact, that was the first thing we noticed about Bloody Mary that made us wonder if we'd really been playing a game at all. As CBC pointed out, quote, "When it comes to the supernatural, the occult, and the strange, the number 3 has special powers. And when you look at Bloody Mary as a practice, well, it does feel a lot like a ritual, doesn't it?" CBC quoted the folklorist Alan Dundas, who interviewed many children about how they played, and the stories they told seemed very ritualistic. Quote, "You have to chant slowly so she has time to come from the spirit world. Then you wait and see her face. Once you see her, you have to run out of the bathroom where your friends are waiting. If you've sinned or done anything evil in your life, then you will have 3 scratches of blood on your cheek." Note that he gives us another variation in that example. And while it's interesting to point out all the little references that tie the game to legend and to ritual, it seems hard to figure out exactly what's going on. After all, with a practice that's definitely older than the internet, and with so many iterations and connections to ritual, it would seem impossible to track down where any of this started, right? Well, it would be, except for one strange thing. We can figure out, sort of, when the story originated, in the late 1960s and early 1970s. And if the earliest research pans out, the story might have just first swirled up in the Midwest, Illinois and Indiana, and then trickled out across the United States and the world. This doesn't mean that there's one clear tale, of course. Things are never that simple. But it sure is interesting. Before we get into Mary's specifics, such as they are, we'll point out that Mary has some archetypal hallmarks that connect her to other well-known figures in legend and lore. Now, plenty of other folks have pointed out that Bloody Mary has some similarities to La Llorona, the famous weeping ghost of Mexican folklore. And that's probably a tie-in to that line that pops up in some Bloody Mary rituals. "Bloody Mary, where's your baby?" Because, of course, the weeping, tragic ghost is always looking for her babies. But there's also another figure with perhaps a more direct tie, the spirit known as Hanako-san. According to the Business Standard, the story of Hanako-san is, quote, a Japanese urban legend about a spirit of a young girl named Hanako-san who haunts school bathrooms. To summon her, most variations of the myth require you to knock somewhere in the room, usually a stall and often the third one, exactly 3 times, and then ask if she's in the room. Per the folklorist Matthew Meyer's blog, these stories seem to have originated sometime in the late 1940s or possibly early 1950s. We actually found a few different scholarly papers about the popularity of so-called toilet ghosts, as in bathrooms, not commodes, and how they tie in to the communal school experience, especially for girls. If you want a famous example, just think of Moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter. Toilet ghosts are common in British school culture, so her inclusion was not a surprise. But the trope, a girl who died at school and now haunts it, in more or less vengeful ways depending on the version, seems to be present in many cultures. And Bloody Mary is a bathroom ghost of sorts, and that makes sense, right? It might come down to where children are most likely to have access to mirrors. In school, of course, there's the toilets. And the slumber party is always going to be able to run into the family bathroom and quickly flick off the light switch. On the subject of bathrooms, one folklorist we've already name-checked, Alan Dundas, drew a connection between Bloody Mary and what he termed, quote, prepubescent anxiety. After all, the transition from girl to teenager is fraught and communal and involves blood. That's certainly an interesting observation, and it's in line with the thoughts of the folklorist Gail DeVos. Snopes quoted her in their article on Bloody Mary, observing the special appeal to tweens and the danger and attraction of the game. Quote, so, why do children continue to summon Bloody Mary, flirting with danger and possible tragedy? The ages between 9 and 12 are labeled the Robinson age by psychologists. This is the period when children need to satisfy their cravings for excitement by participating in ritual games and playing in the dark. They are constantly looking for a safe way to extract pleasure and release their anxiety and fears. End quote. And of course, that isn't limited to girls, something that Gail DeVos points out. Children, all children, like to play at the edges of fear. Strangers, we are truly fascinated, and we could honestly get way more into that angle. But this show is supposed to, be short, so we need to get into where Bloody Mary might have first peered out of her mirror. As best as anyone can guess, anyway.
Whether you're into a quick gloss and go or full glam with bold colors, we all have that one product we can't live without. For me, it's the Thrive Causemetics Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara. It gives my lashes unbelievable length and definition, like extensions in a tube. And with 6 shades that don't clump, smudge, or flake, it stays flawless all day. Plus, removal is a dream. It slides off with warm water, no tugging required. The best part? Thrive Causemetics is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients. And when you shop, you're giving back. They've donated over $150 million in products and cash to support causes like cancer, homelessness, and domestic abuse. High-performance beauty that gives back? That's something I'll always stand behind. Try your new trusty favorites with an exclusive set for our listeners. New customers can get the Liquid Lash Extensions Mascara and a mini-sized Brilliant Eye Brightener at a special set price with free shipping at thrivecausemetics.com/beauty. That's Thrive Causemetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/beauty.
Beautiful Anonymous changes each week. It defies genres and expectations. For example, our most recent episode, I talked to a woman who survived a murder attempt by her own son. But just the week before that, we just talked the whole time about Star Trek. We've had other recent episodes about sexting in languages that are not your first language, or what it's like to get weight loss surgery. It's unpredictable, it's real, it's honest, it's raw. Get Beautiful Anonymous wherever you listen to podcasts.
Remember when we mentioned that versions vary? Some of those early ones, collected by folklorists who studied Bloody Mary stories, provided a surprising amount of backstory, including surnames for Mary. Back in 2013, Discovery posted a now archived article that collected the most complete list of names that we've seen floating around the internet. Quote, Mary Worth, Mary Jane, Mary Lou, Mary Worthington, Mary Wales, and Mary Johnson. After some digging, we found that the list originated with the first folklorist to ever publish an essay on the Bloody Mary phenomenon, Janet Langlois, whose essay, Mary Wales, I Believe in You, appeared in 1978. She explained that she was first attracted to the topic after speaking to a local child named Gia. She met Gia in Indiana at a psychic fair all the way back in 1972. Please, don't ask us details about this event. We wish we knew. Now, Gia was enrolled at a local Catholic girls' school where she said that lots of people knew the story. This was interesting since Janet, a folklorist, had never heard of Bloody Mary. When she interviewed Gia and eventually dozens of other children, she found that some, though not all, knew versions of the tale. And unlike many children today, they offered very specific and similar backstories for Mary, aka Mary Wales. Here's what Gia told Janet back in 1972, that a young couple was driving along a road one night when they saw a young woman standing alone, hitchhiking. According to Gia, they saw that, quote, she was kinda wet and she was bleeding and she had scratches on her face, so they thought it would be nice to pick her up and things. And so they picked her up, and she told them she gave them this address. And so they took her there, and when they got there, she was gone. This couple was surprised, as you'd imagine, since people don't generally disappear when you stop your car. So they went up to the door of the house, and they knocked. And then, Gia explained, the door was answered by an older woman and her daughter. Now, the young couple, peering inside, recognized a photo hanging on the home's wall. We think you know where we're going with this. As Gia told Janet, the family grew very still as the couple explained, we picked a girl up that looked just like that picture tonight. And then the mother of the family said, nah, it couldn't have been her. She's been dead for 6 years. Gia told Janet that the girl who got picked up and disappeared was named Mary Wales. And if you wanted to see her, you had to go into the bathroom. She explained, you could call her 10 or 100 times and call her name and say, I do believe in Mary Wales, and she was supposed to come. Janet immediately recognized the classic legend of the vanishing hitchhiker buried in Gia's story. It's an old story, and one that exists across cultures. In the United States, it's been traced back to at least the late 19th century and researched extensively by folklore scholars. But in this particular version, the children she interviewed had gone on to tie the story into their city and a spot where the couple had picked up their ghost. Some mentioned that the only sign Mary Wales had left behind in the car was a wet spot where she'd sat in the back seat. When Janet dug through the archives at Indiana University, she found more references to those others we mentioned, like Mary Lou and Mary Worth. Janet found references to a Mary Worth in Wisconsin who shattered the mirror and scarred girls' faces. She read a story about a supposed Salem witch named Mary Worth, too, all tales dating back to the childhoods of the interviewees. Based on the dates of what she found, it seems like the Mary Games started in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Now, we can't prove that, of course, but it lines up with what others noticed. Bloody Mary, springing up, passing from child to child, and school to school. The references Janet found were in the Midwest, so it could have been there that they were born, though it's not guaranteed. If Mary did spring forth in that part of the country, it might merely have been chance, or maybe a perfect storm of local legend and the right combination of children sharing stories. We just don't know. We do know, though, that the stories and the game spread. As for the pieces that built Mary, she might have swirled up from all the fragments that already existed: toilet ghost, Mexican folklore, vanishing hitchhikers, the shift from girl to womanhood, cautionary tales, maybe all caught up in the cultural upheaval of the late 1960s and early 1970s. As far as we can tell, though, no one has ever tracked down precisely why mirrors cross paths with these other pieces to form the story. But, like threes, they're a powerful symbol, and they've played a role in legend and in magic for a long, long time. There's mirror divination, of course. It's an ancient practice, but it was most recently popular with the Victorians, particularly women and especially young, single ones. Snopes explained that the common games involve, quote, unmarried girls and future husbands. There are a number of variations of these divinations, some involving chanting a rhyme in a darkened room on a special night, and then quickly looking in the mirror to catch a glimpse of the bridegroom-to-be. Now, strangers, these rituals often involved candles and walking backwards, all sorts of things. But the key was staring at one's image until something else appeared. That was the goal. Was it going to be a handsome man or a skull? Stare long enough, and your future was supposed to be there. Then again, stare long enough, and you'll see just about anything. Actually, a study was done on precisely that, and they linked it to the Bloody Mary phenomena. It doesn't tell us precisely how our spirit got caught up in the whole thing, but it does help explain some of what children have claimed to see all these years. Scientists are handy, aren't they? According to the Financial News, this describes the Bloody Mary phenomena, or the Caputo effect, named after psychologist Giovanni Caputo. He was very interested in mirrors, which we can certainly understand. In a particular project, he had his subjects focus on their own reflections in dimly lit rooms, and then report what they saw. Apparently, his study of 50 participants showed visual distortions were surprisingly common. His findings revealed that, quote, some 66% of them noticed some kind of distortion in their own face. 18% claimed to have seen the face of a relative with changed features, 8% of a person still alive and 10% of someone deceased. 28% observed an unknown person, and another 28% saw an archetypal face, such as that of an old woman or a child, or the portrait of an ancestor. 18% saw the face of an animal, for example, a cat or a pig or a lion, and 48% claimed to have seen fantastic beings. Now, these findings, they make sense to us. It's staring at something familiar until it becomes the unknown, the strange, the unusual, the frightening, which is a pretty good metaphor, honestly, for that gateway between childhood and adolescence, isn't it? That fearful change when we don't quite recognize ourselves and all the rituals or all the children that accompany it. Urban legends are rather tied up in our rituals and in change, and in our fear of it. The appearance of the highway system, and then the explosion of the vanishing hitchhiker stories. Stranger danger and the poison candy, urban sprawl and the gators in the sewers. A spirit that might or might not leave a mark to signify change. Wherever Bloody Mary really came from, that seems right up our anxiety alley, doesn't it? We think so. We hope you'll join us next time for another real-life story from the fine print of America's local papers. From the lives of regular people, just like you and me, except for one strange thing. One Strange Thing is an independent podcast. To support the show and to hear more of the entirely true and enticingly peculiar, you can check out our premium offerings. If you'd like to subscribe on Apple Premium, we've established a new feed where you'll get both premium and ad-free early releases of our main feed episodes as well. If you subscribe to Patreon, you'll find ad-free early releases of our regular episodes, 2 full-length bonus episodes, monthly giveaways, and blog posts, all for $5 a month. We hope you'll check out one of these options to support the show. There's a link in the show notes. And if you enjoy One Strange Thing, please take a moment to leave us a great rating or review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps.